circumstances with some of our employee raises, but it was something that we had to do, and now we're just working out the mechanics of how we're going to continue to fund that workforce. But the county has made some good decisions about how it's structured and looking for opportunities to increase our income. The problem is that we don't have an overall strategy of economic development, and we can see increase in sales tax areas and some of the other units that you would expect to see. So Monday afternoon, that's when we'll give you some updated numbers, but the team has been working very hard on pulling down that set of numbers. That doesn't mean that it won't be controversial with some of the cuts that we'll be delivering, but we'll start rolling those out to you now that we have a firmer handle on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments to the CEO's report?
Just another quick comment on the assessed valuation situation. As I reported last week that the Willis bypass is on schedule and on time and on budget. There's $33 million in there for right-of-way acquisition, which the good news is most of that money will probably be reinvested back in Mendocino County. But the bad news is that's probably, although it's not the $33 million figure, somewhat less than that, but that also being, as it goes into state property for the railroad or right-of-way of the Willis bypass, that assessed valuation is also coming off the tax rolls.
Okay. All right. Any other items? We have one remaining item. This the supervisors' reports. Any of the supervisors have something they want to report back to the board? Supervisor Pinchas on
first of all, MSWA, 3 weeks ago, we are moving forward with an offer on the new site for the MSWA facility. We offered a $200,000 purchase price for that. So I think that's just an offer. We're not proceeding with the eminent domain process right now. We're just putting out a straight offer. Another thing I'd like to bring out, last night on the news, the California Department of Fish and Game made a big presentation on a 6 o'clock news about how they have this new idea of recovery of the salmon. They're taking the salmon smolts and taking from the hatcheries and dumping them right into the estuaries and whatnot, basically into the ocean. You know, that I kind of laughed because that is a complete new policy for Fish and Game. They've always said you can't do that in the past. You had to imprint them in the river and let them all get killed by the predators in the river before a few of them got into the ocean. So Fish and Game is finally doing what other states are doing to help bring back their salmon population. So it was big news for Fish and Game, but if you go to other states, they've been doing it for 20, 30 years.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'm sorry, what was your first item?
The reporting out to the MSWA offer $200,000.
So there has been contact made with the property owner
Yes.
or the trust?
Yes.
Wow, that's remarkable. It's been going on for years, and that's the first contact we've had with those folks, so be interested to see how that plays out. Any other reports? I did have a couple of items. Didn't get to this last week, but I partaked in the Farm Bureau Eel River watershed trip 2 weeks ago, and that was tremendously informational. The watershed itself is absolutely huge, and it goes beyond me just describing it. If any of you have not taken the trip, please take advantage of it next spring and take that trip. The amount of water that's diverted through that small tunnel into Potter Valley is literally a drop in the bucket of the water in the watershed. You'll find out more if you take the trip. It would take me too long to explain it, but it is very informational, and everyone should take that trip. I did partake last Monday. Another item I didn't get to report on was to testify at the Assembly committee hearing of Revenue and Taxation, I believe it's called, on AB 1819, which is the sales tax exemption attempt by this board for volunteer fire departments to exempt them from their sales tax. Relatively small dollar item. our Assemblywoman brought it forward, very straightforward, a great piece of legislation. She started into the testimony introducing the item, and Chief Little from Laytonville was there to testify along with myself. And as she entered into her introductory discussion, two members of the committee, both Republicans, stepped up and said, "This is a great bill, I want to make a motion to approve it." The other gentleman seconded it and caught Patty Bird completely by surprise, and she continued on into her introductory statement, at which point the chairman of the committee interrupted our Assemblywoman and said, "Ms. Bird, excuse me, how many Republicans do you have going along with this bill?" And she says, "Well, it's myself and 4 co-sponsors. They're all Republicans." And he had the audacity to say, "This bill will never leave this committee because of that co-sponsorship." Now, it was a disgusting, bald-faced slap in the citizens' face of this supposed era of bipartisanship. This was a very small dollar ticket item to the state of California. She wrote it very specifically to address counties of 100,000 or less. So it was really only 22 counties that it affected. Mr. Calderon from LA went on to chastise her for her boldness to bring forward a bipartisan bill such as this, no matter what size, what dollar, how many counties were involved. And poor Patty was just taken back. She had done everything she could think of to move this bill forward, and he was just having a bad day, I guess. And she finished her introductory statement. He went on ranting and raving. I led into my testimony, and he said, "If I had asked for your opinion, I would have asked for it. Or if I had wanted your opinion, I would have asked for it." I continued my statement. To hell with him. This was a good bill for the very basics of our government, volunteer fire departments. And a lot of very interesting behind closed doors politics were played out right there in front of everybody. And a vote came on the motion. 3 of the Democrats refused to vote under the threat from the chairman of what might happen if they voted for the bill. So out of the 7 members, it came down to a 2-2 tie vote with further discussions and a demand from the chairman to modify the bill, etc. I believe there was a possibility it was going to be heard a second time yesterday for further modifications. The contact never came through from Mr. Peterson in Sacramento that we were needed to be there again to testify, so I don't believe any action took place on it. And if that, in its very minute contribution to California, is how government plays out in Sacramento, I don't want to be sitting here anymore. I don't want to take part in government that is so audacious and so disgusting that they did it in front of everybody. They didn't even have the balls to do it behind closed doors. And I'm sorry if I'm being very frank and being very passionate, but if that's the way this bill takes place, heaven help us, we will never get a budget this year before Christmas. And that's my prediction. And I'm sorry, I got really upset as I did then. And it's just very unfortunate, it really is.
So he was basically right. He killed it right there.
Well, there was the opportunity for Patty to bring back modified and have further discussions, but as far as I know, nothing else has happened. And
So if you can't get a